Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Today, we are going to look at some of the biggest investments of one of the most successful investors of all time, Warren Buffett. Before we do that, please click subscribe to my channel if you don't already to keep up with all of my latest investing and personal finance content. And as always, be sure to check out a message from our sponsor, The Motley Fool, by going to the link on your screen to get their 10 best stocks to buy now. So let's get into what is in Warren Buffett's stock portfolio. Berkshire Hathaway owns about 50 different stocks, but some of them are much larger than others. The portfolio is very top heavy, and the larger positions, especially, most of them were hand selected by Warren Buffett himself. So technically, these are not Warren Buffett's personal investments, these are Berkshire Hathaway's investments. But Warren Buffett is Berkshire Hathaway's largest shareholder, and like I just mentioned, he picked most of the stocks himself. Total value of the portfolio on the open market is roughly $319 billion as of this recording. And Berkshire has about $105 billion of cash still on its balance sheet. In addition to the stock portfolio, this can be used to buy more stocks, invest in businesses, or buy back shares of Berkshire Hathaway itself. And it's also worth mentioning that Buffett only reports the stock holdings to the SEC twice a year, or I'm sorry, 4 times a year. So the information you're seeing today is as of the end of the second quarter of 2022. So the biggest position in Buffett's portfolio is Apple. And this is a very, very large holding for Berkshire Hathaway. Makes up roughly 40% of the entire stock portfolio. Berkshire holds about over 915 million shares of Apple with a market value of about $139 billion. And because Apple is such a massive company, this is less than 6% of the entire company. Apple is a relatively new Berkshire investment. It's come into the portfolio in the past 5 or 6 years or so, but it has already been a massive, massive success for the company. Number two is Bank of America. Bank of America has been a big focus of Warren Buffett recently. He first bought the stock in the wake of the financial crisis, paying $5 billion for preferred stock. But the preferred stock was convertible to common stock at a certain price that he essentially paid $5 billion for 700 million shares of Bank of America. As you can see by that share count, Berkshire now owns more than 1 billion shares of Bank of America with a market value of about $31.6 billion, almost 13% of the entire bank. It's a really big deal when Berkshire is willing to put more to buy more than 10% of any given company. It creates a lot of regulatory headaches. Buffett had to file paperwork that said he was going to take a passive stake in Bank of America and not try to have a controlling interest in the bank. So, just to name one example. So, Bank of America, Berkshire has sold a lot of its bank stocks recently, but Bank of America is one that it has added to. Number three, and this is a relatively new position, really just taking shape in this past few quarters. Chevron has now become the number three investment in Berkshire's stock portfolio. About 163.5 million shares worth $23 billion. Berkshire now owns over 8% of Chevron. This is one part of Berkshire's big bet on fossil fuels that it's making. And oil prices rose a lot so far in the past year or so, and we'll see how they go in the future. Number four is Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is one of the longest running stock positions in Berkshire's portfolio. You see an even number of shares, 400 million exactly in Berkshire's portfolio, worth about $22.6 billion. Buffett originally paid about $1 billion for the investment. So this has been a big long-term home run. And it represents about 9.2% of the entire Coca-Cola company. Buffett is an avid Coca-Cola fan. He loves the product. During Berkshire meetings, he's usually sipping on a cherry Coke or something like that. And Buffett invests in products he believes in, and Coca-Cola is definitely one of them. Number five, and the top five positions in Buffett's portfolio are, there's a big gap between the top five and the rest of them. American Express, a position worth nearly $21 billion. Berkshire owns more than 20% of American Express, making it its largest financial sector investment by the percentage ownership. So Berkshire Hathaway actually owns more than 1/5 of American Express. I mentioned with Chevron that Buffett was betting big on fossil fuels, and another big component of that is Occidental Petroleum. This is an $11 billion stake, representing a little over 20% of Occidental. And Buffett has accumulated quite a bit of Occidental stock in 2022, very incrementally. And because of this, a lot of people have speculated that Buffett might actually try to buy all of Occidental, make a takeout offer for the company, and in the meantime, accumulate as many shares on the open market as he can. 7, a rare miss for Buffett is Kraft Heinz. Um, Buffett's Kraft Heinz stake originated from the merger of Kraft Foods and Heinz, which Buffett had a major stake in. A little over 325.6 million shares of the company, worth about $10.7 billion at the current market price. And unlike all the other stocks on this list, all of them have been pretty solid investments for Berkshire, other than Kraft Heinz. It's down significantly from the price Buffett paid for the company, and Buffett himself admitted that he overpaid, paid a lot more than he should have for his Heinz stock that eventually became Kraft Heinz. Moody's is number 8 financial services firm. They are best known for being a bond rating agency. They have a bunch of service businesses. Almost 25 million shares. There's a relatively high share price, so this value is about $6.2 billion. And Berkshire owns 13.4% of Moody's. Essentially a duopoly on corporate debt ratings. There's Moody's and S&P Global. Very immune to competition and really sticky business. Number 9, another financial sector company is U.S. Bancorp. A little over 137 million shares. Berkshire has added to this stake recently, worth about $5.6 billion. And because U.S. Bank isn't one of the major big banks, this is more than 9% of the company that Berkshire owns. Berkshire has sold several bank stocks recently, including J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs. But U.S. Bank and Bank of America are the two that they have been adding to. Finally, number 10 is a company called BYD, probably the least familiar on this presentation to a lot of people watching. BYD is an electric car company based in China, and it often surprises people that Berkshire has such a large stake in any electric car manufacturer. They own a little over 207 million shares of BYD. It's worth about $5.5 billion. Berkshire paid a whole lot less than that. I think they paid under $300 million for BYD. And they own a little over 7% of the company. They wanted to buy more, but management wouldn't sell it to them at the time. And it has been a home run for Berkshire Hathaway. BYD is one of the most successful electric vehicle manufacturers in the world. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to click subscribe if you don't subscribe to my channel already. And as always, this video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. Be sure to visit www.fool.com/Frankel to receive the top 10 best stocks to buy now.